Okay, here we're going to take a look at how to prevent someone from grabbing us and how to escape most of the grips that they may try to establish. So for someone to grab our wrist, they basically need their hand behind ours. And so if we can keep our hand behind theirs, no matter where they go, they're going to have a very difficult time. So notice here, Prince was trying to pummel underneath to the outside of my hand. If I simply rotate my hand to face the camera, in this case, to face him, he's going to have a difficult time. So it's a sensitivity drill that's important to start slow with. And at the end of the drill, we'll just take an arm drag. We'll get into the arm drag a little more a little later in this sequence. But here we start with this prevention of grips. And then we move on to two hands on one. So the first thing is, you notice we have to establish our base so they can't just drag us wherever they want. We'll talk about base a little deeper shortly. And then we make a fist, turn it palm up, and we can free our wrist. So first base, fist, palm up, grab the top of the wrist, and I like to bend the wrist towards me in order to not only make it easier to grab, let's see if we can find that moment. So here, it's a little subtle, but notice I pull the fist towards me, or I bend it towards me so that it's easier to grab and the angle of the break is stronger. Now notice I don't pull the hands to the chest, rather I pull all the way overhead, exactly, and disengage here. Now, instead of just backing out, we can actually step in and drive our elbow to their chest. Here this is kind of a pretty powerful universal escape. It looks as though I'm pulling my hand out, but the hand comes out as a result of the forearm pressing in, which levers the hand out. Now, in this situation, notice what happened. Prince, when he pulled, anytime your shoulder to foot line is a straight line, you're very safe. You're very hard to pull. But because that line is not straight, I don't feel quite stable, and Prince would be able to pull me in this direction. So when we feel this line is broken, first we do lean away, and we'll talk about the shoulder safety in a second. We do have to contract our shoulder, but we need to basically step this foot forward in order to straighten that line. If I was much stronger than Prince, then I could simply pull him this way by leaning my shoulder this way, but because we assume they're bigger, we have to step in and then correct that lead foot. Now with this line straight, notice he might give everything to pull me. It's not going to work. So if we start with the line straight, here, notice, tough time. Now it's very important, this super important safety note. Many of us are, half of us will say are hypermobile, meaning we have flexible joints, we may be flexible muscularly as well. But what happens here is when I'm doing a good job and he's doing a good job, all the pressure can very easily transfer to the shoulder. So my weight's pulling this way, his pulling that way, and what's taking the brunt of it could be the shoulder, unless we retract the shoulder. So when we do the rear naked choke, we extend out from the shoulder. We want to do the opposite. We want to pull the shoulder into the body to keep it safe. Now, because we kept solid position with that shoulder to foot line straight, we're able to stop him. Now notice it's bent a little bit, so we need to walk in. Now he's gonna he has a very tough time keeping, even keeping his position, but certainly dragging. Here the line was bent, so we correct. And that might take a few steps, but notice very relaxed, don't need to put a lot of energy into stopping him once that shoulder to foot line is straight. Now we take a look at another somewhat universal escape where we push, or it's the same one we looked at with two hands, where we step in here. Now we have a similar escape where instead of going up to the inside, we go to the inside by going over his arm, like so, boom. But that only works if he grabs this grip where it's right arm on left from the outside. When he grabs, as we see here, when he grabs, say, a cross grip, that previous technique's going to be difficult, but the one we looked at prior to that, again, pretty universal. Even two hands, as we saw, doesn't really change it. Boom, palms up, doesn't change it. Still strong. Now, one version of the escape, or one form of escape, is this two hands slapping. So the trapped hand moves to the right, the free hand moves to the left, and the palm acts as battering ram. Now it's very important, and notice this works on all angles. It's the principle of I move the trapped hand in the direction of the gap, which we can actually see well here between his fingers and his thumb, while the other hand moves in the exact opposite direction. It's like that school analogy of two trains moving towards each other. The speed of each compounds here and again on all angles. Boom. Now, sometimes we just can't free our wrist for whatever reason. When this is the case, it's time to get more offensive than defensive. And here we feel we can't free it. Our left hand comes into the opponent's armpit, and we drive in for an arm drag. From here, we could just disengage or wet towel, put them down, and rear naked choke. Again, wet towel. With the wet towel, which we'll go into depth with later, the human body stays upright when the shoulders are roughly over the hips. So we pull the shoulders back while pushing the hips forward. Now we can put them down. Notice as we put them down with the wet towel, just one more time, nice drag to the back. If the hips stay forward, we're going to fall back too. So we pull those hips back, lean on them, and then again, when we go for the rear naked choke, it's not enough to just connect your hands in the proper configuration. We have to extend forward from the shoulder, then press this elbow across. If that elbow is closer to this shoulder of Prince's, the choke will not be effective. We push across, then we lock up and finish. Can't free the wrist, we go arm drag, wet towel, and we're good. Now, when we typically learn this, the rear naked choke, when we're a little newer, we teach to straighten the arm, protrude the arm forward from the shoulder, press the straight arm sideways, then bend the arm. You'll notice I didn't do that. It's because I've trained the elbow where to go. So now, because my shoulder knows to go forward, my elbow knows to go under the chin, I go direct, which is the superior way versus the way we teach it at the beginning, only because it prevents if you do actually straighten the arm, then elongate or protrude from the shoulder, they have a chance to grab the wrist. Here they have no chance because the wrist is hidden immediately. And instead of grabbing on top of the bicep and then bringing this forearm behind them, notice we just fold this hand over this one and slice behind. So again, there's no chance for them to interrupt or intercept.